Well, hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? Welcome to another episode of He Said, a look at the world from a seasoned Black man's perspective. I'm Alvin King, and welcome to our show tonight. Before I begin, I want to give out another strong, heartfelt prayer to the people in Ukraine. Again, I have never seen anything like this before, and I hope I never see anything like this again. But I do hope that it stops very soon for the sake of the world. But we are praying for you, Ukraine, and stay as strong as you can. Well, hey, the weekend is upon us, everybody, and we are about to spring forward. That's right. We're going to lose an hour this weekend, so don't forget to set your clock. I think that you would say set it up, actually. So you're going to move it up at some point after midnight, after you fall asleep on Saturday. So don't forget to do that, because if you don't, you might be, I guess in this case, you will be early. No, for everything. I'm not sure. Just do it. Just set your spring your clocks forward, because it will happen this weekend. But thank you for joining us for another show tonight. We are excited about the show as always. But I got to share something with you, because you just need to know. On Wednesday night, here in Washington, D.C., the Library of Congress had their Gershwin Award. And this year, the honoree was Lionel Richie. And I mean to tell you that it was an incredible show. Here is the program from the show, ladies and gentlemen. It was, spectacular. And on May the 17th, the show will be aired on PBS. And the reason why I talk about this, because in the times that we're living in right now, in that room, it was such division in that room. I mean, the Democrats and the Republicans, but this concert made a united front, and the music and the artists who delivered in honor of Lionel Richie were spectacular. So again, May 17th on PBS, mark your calendar so you can take a look at it. Our show tonight, it is lifting the curtain, setting the stage. And our metaphor and theme for tonight's show is about the stage. So like looking at your life during the pandemic, as if it was a theater, and the curtain came down 2 years ago on all of us. And the question is exactly how did you feel when that happened? And now is the time for us to come from behind the curtain onto our main stage. But the question still, remain: are you ready? Today marks 2 years since the World Health Organization announced COVID-19 as a nationwide pandemic. Now, 730 days later, 6 million people have died worldwide from COVID. 970,000 of those people right here in the US alone. And 1 million of those people, of 1 million people lost their jobs. So now we're beginning to feel some hope, and we're ready to move forward. But for me personally, I had to deal with some depression and anxiety that I never thought that I would have experienced once this crisis hit. And I had to make some changes in my personal and my professional life that required a lot of change for me to get back onto my stage. So with the decline of COVID cases around the world and more people vaccinated, this is not a simple fix. People are about to enter into a different world and making important decisions about returning to what they thought was a normal life. Yet everything that we knew it used to be, it will never, ever be the same. So have you set your stage? Do you have your cast members ready? Do you have a script, or are you going to improvise? And most importantly, are you prepared for the curtain to rise? Well, tonight we have psychotherapist Stephen Welch returning to the He Said stage for our Manage Your Health series, Lifting the Curtain and Setting the Stage. And Stephen will discuss with us how COVID-19 has redirected our ways and how we are dealing with our personal and professional relationships that have impacted our routines, our habits, and have challenged our mental well-being. And I cannot do this show, ladies and gentlemen, without my co-host. So I'm going to bring him on right now. Vash, will you come on in, please?
Hello, hello.
Hello,
Hey, Alvin.
sunshine. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Look, I love your yellow and blue, supporting
Thank you.
Ukraine. You're always bringing us with some good fashion.
Thank you. Thank you. I certainly try. And hello, Monica. Hello, Bobby, for tuning in tonight. That's right. Mental health is real. And we're so glad that you all are joining us tonight because we really do have on this anniversary. Gosh,
That's amazing to
I
realize that
know,
it's been 2 years to the day.
2 years to the day. Yes,
Wow.
that
And,
had
and we're
declared a national pandemic. So,
and things are clearing up. So nice. We
things
hope.
are. I was going to say getting back to normal, but I'm sorry. If ever that happens, clap your hands, and I'll stop because I don't know what normal is. But Vash, there's so much going on, in the news right now,
Ah,
and I'm telling you, it is almost making me sick. We could just do a whole show on the news,
the
okay?
news.
On,
Yes.
on, on the news, on the news. But I want to share with our guests tonight a clip because I don't know if you all have heard about it. Have you heard about the Don't Say Gay bill?
That is one of the big things that are hot talking points. Yes, I have.
This is ridiculous.
Well, I read the law.
Mhm.
And for the most part, I mean, it's like 3 or 4 pages. For the most part, it's really about making sure that the schools tell parents what's going on, not keeping anything from the parents. There is just one sentence that says that you can't teach anything about sexual orientation to kids from K through third grade. I mean, it's one of those things where it's just randomly in there, and it makes you wonder why is it in there. And if you understand the strategy of conservatives and anti-gay zealots,
Mhm.
you can tell that it's a little Trojan horse. You put it in, no one's going to fight the fact that you don't want to teach sexual orientation to kids from kindergarten to third grade. If you fight it, it's easy to just, bulldoze over you. But if they pass the law, what's going to happen is it's easy for them to go in and amend it to expand that age range. So eventually it will be what people are saying it's going to be now. So when people are fighting against it, saying, "Oh no, it makes perfect sense," they're not understanding strategy, and people are right to be upset about this. It's
Yeah, I just think it's wrong all the way around. And again, I had to. I'm glad we played the humorous clip so I won't have to curse
yeah,
about it. But that's what's in the news. Make it go away, ladies and gentlemen. Okay,
yeah.
it should just go away.
Well, and again, people need to understand that
Yeah,
the way that it's written, it's hard to fight it because no one is telling people that it's okay to talk about sexual orientation to children who are in K through third grade. And the thing is, the people who are doing that are not us. It's straight people who are going around and asking little kids, "So is that your girlfriend? Is that
right.
your boyfriend?" They're the ones that do that. We don't do that. It's y'all. So for those people who are going around doing that, they should stop it because we're not doing that.
Right.
They're just trying to put together a strategy that they can then come after us later. And I think it's good that we're pushing back.
Yeah, I think it will pass also blue, which is again really sad. Well, in other news, ladies and gentlemen, the girls, some of the girls are really doing it right now. And if we could bring up Jennifer Hudson has a new daytime talk show coming for all you J Hud fans, if you didn't know. And I'm assuming that since the gentleman that was married to Mariah Carey that has a talk show, Nick Cannon's show just got canceled. So if
Oh,
Jennifer Hudson might be the replace for him on Fox. So for those of you who are J Hud fans, Jennifer Hudson is coming to you live daytime while I'm working from home. So I hope you all enjoy
that should be fun. It sounds like it might be a throwback to the old talk shows of like Dinah Shore, where they would sing and have some music and then talk to people. Is that before your time? You don't remember Dinah Shore and uh, who was the other one? The Mike was it Mike
No,
Douglas?
no, I remember that, but
Yeah,
I think Kelly's doing it right now, but that's a different audience. But Kelly is doing it right now,
but
and
there were
yeah,
multiple of them on before
yeah,
hitting different
yeah.
audiences. So it sounds like we're going back. It's all retro. Everything old is new again.
Well, let's just wait and see if Jennifer Hudson can pull this off.
I
But
think she will.
go J Hud. And
Yes.
last but not least, for those of you who love Lizzo, Lizzo has a new show that's coming out. And in my opinion, as controversial as it may be, ladies and gentlemen, the singer Lizzo, she will have a new show where she's going to highlight body positivity. And she's going to have people on the show that the series is going to talk about. She's actually getting dancers for her tour, and I think it's going to do very well. But there's going to be a lot of controversy behind it. Yeah, I think.
You think so? What controversy do you think there'll be?
Well, I think the controversy that is going to be there is like, okay, you're promoting this for little kids to see, and expecting parents to buy into that, even though she's promoting body positivity. And I guess the best way to explain it, if we could just roll the clip for a few minutes to show what the show is going to be about, that will probably speak to what I'm saying. Yeah.
What's up, y'all? It's Lizzo. I'm looking for dancers to join me on my tour. Girls that look like me don't get representation. Time to pull up my sleeves and find them myself. We thick and we pretty and we know what we about. It's the battle of the big girls.
To be a background dancer for Lizzo would just mean everything.
It's showtime.
Hey, ladies!
What do we have in store?
This is the fun part.
I was always doubting myself, and I feel like that has been detrimental in how I approach dance. I'm realizing that I do deserve a spot on that stage.
It's hard to love yourself in a world that doesn't love you back.
You were created specially in your image for you to enjoy.
You don't have to be light-skinned. You don't have to be skinny. You're just beautiful the way you are.
I need to challenge myself and step outside my comfort zone.
Now I'm going into competition mode.
Some people are not at the same level that I am.
I'm gonna call you Lil Sis.
She's trying to demean me. She's not understanding how to read the room.
You might not make it into the show.
I see a lot of potential, but this is not the time for potential.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's gonna. Yay, Lizzo, love it, but I think it's going to not be without this controversy. Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's going to be like a competition-y show as well. So like Survivor meets background dancer. I can't wait for it.
Like RuPaul's Drag Race. Okay. Yeah. Like, okay. Well, we talked about that stage. What was that? Blue. Welcome, Derek. Derek Marable is here. Derwin is here. Robin is here. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Blue said, I know like it. They are looking to grab the young audience, the people going back to work. Oh, no. Okay. All right. But I'm sure people will be tuning in. Well,
very few people watch broadcast anyway. Everyone catches it after the fact. So I think people will really be into it.
I think people will buy into it.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to our show tonight, Lifting the Curtain, Setting the Stage. And as I told you, we have a special guest here. Stephen Welch is a psychotherapist with 30 years of experience in the areas of addiction, HIV, trauma, and LGBTQI+ issues with a focus on communities of color. He has a private practice in Manhattan, and we are so glad to have him back on our show, ladies and gentlemen. So please welcome none other than Stephen Welch.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
Thanks
Stephen.
for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us again. How are you doing?
Good. When you were talking about J Hud and Lizzo, it seems like we need some escapism about now to make each other laugh, sing, that type of thing. So I think some of what's coming out has to do with I need to get back, feel normal, laugh, that type of energy. So that's just my first take on watching those clips.
Well, thank you. I received that. Thank you. Thank you. Again, it is 730 days since we were told to go back, and that we had to like put ourselves in the closet or whatever and not come outside to play. But before we get into that, Stephen, can you take about 90 seconds to introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, like Alvin said, I'm a psychotherapist in Manhattan. Just to add to what he was saying, I run a couple of groups, Women of Color, Black Gay Men's Group. I work with folks who have mood disorders, meaning anxiety, depression, things that get in the way of their day-to-day living, so that whatever they're feeling, it leads them to not be their optimal self. And I focus on mental wellness, not mental problems. I think the words that we use are very powerful. So it's about wellness.
Well, thank you again for being here, Stephen. I'm just going to jump to the first question. Since we're talking about, being behind the curtain when COVID hit, let's talk about some of the ways that people have taken care of themselves day to day during COVID. Let's talk about, because for me, I know I had to figure out a whole different way of taking care of myself that where I thought I was doing well, but this took on a whole new meaning.
Mm-hmm. So what's the specific question?
Well, the question is, what are some of the ways that people have taken care of themselves day to day during COVID?
Okay, I'll answer it like this. Some people did not take care of themselves. There was a lack of self-care, isolation. Just to use myself as an example, because my office building was closed, I started working from home. And that led to, working in a great deal of isolation. And that weighed very heavy on me because I'm used to being around other clinicians and so on. So I think folks found different ways to take care of themselves. And I think the ways that they take care of themselves is as individual as they are. So, for example, when folks came to see me, a lot of times COVID wasn't the main thing. It was in the backdrop of the relationship that they were having was getting more problematic as a result of being home all the time. Folks' job functions were changed, and so people were rolling out of bed to a meeting and then rolling right back into bed. Folks taking out their wig, putting it on for the meeting, and then taking the wig off after the meeting. So
that's what I do for this show. I just
every Friday.
So I've heard.
But even in doing that, as you said, people were not taking care of themselves. There were some people who, again, like myself, because my life changed, I had to think about working from home, and so I kind of, and again, I know it's all subjective, but I became more active in realizing what I wasn't accomplishing, or because I was home, and so that just made me be more creative, and we can talk, we will talk further about it, but it kind of brought me to the space that I'm in right now. So I chose the other route of not doing some of the things that I could have done to not take care of myself, like just sulk. And like I said, I was depressed for a minute, and I started making home gyms and stuff. And so just to make sure that I didn't fall into that space. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did.
Well, Stephen, with people not taking care of themselves, that certainly led to some mental wellness challenges. What are some of those challenges that you have seen people have?
Well, I think isolation, like I mentioned before, not having that human contact is very detrimental to our well-being, especially when you think of our children, which is where they learn their social skills is in school and interacting with other children. They have to now manage this at home. The parents have to be home with them. Some parents really have a hard time with some of the schooling now, like the way that folks are being taught now is not what they grew up with. And so that becomes frustrating. for the parent. And sometimes when there's several children in the household, it becomes very overwhelming for them.
Yeah.
Right. So you have the opposite of the isolation. You have people who could not find any time at all to themselves.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. Eating seems like that was probably another one of those challenges, mental wellness challenges, because I know my eating habits changed dramatically, as well as did my table manners. So that was also a factor of being in isolation. Interesting.
Yeah, and I just want to share, just to just share some of the experience. I gained about 20 pounds during COVID, which I'm an exercise person, but I would go from my meeting right to the sofa and maybe have an piece of ice cream, which I never would have done before. If I did, I'd go to the gym later on. So it became just very challenging in that regard. And I think Amazon became one of my best friends. I hardly ever used Amazon. I ordered this, I ordered that. And you justify what you're buying because I do need a new pen. I do need a pair of socks. I mean, next you're buying these things over and over. So that became something I never really did before.
Yeah, I was going to say buying, but not excessively. But Amazon, like you said, for one, and also I don't know why, but I started buying T-shirts and hoodies, and believe me, and on top of the weight gain. And maybe that's why I was buying the T-shirts and the hoodies because I gained 25 pounds. And so, okay, now it's all coming together. I had to have a psychotherapist on the show to help me understand what had just happened. So thank you, Stephen. I'll send you a check later on. Okay,
That's
so
hilarious.
Please do, and add $100 to it.
Okay, I will do that. Okay, well, go ahead, Sabah.
No, I was going to say body changes. I mean, the weight gain is one thing, but also mobility. As you mentioned, going from bed to desk to sofa to bed. I mean, like moving around. I'm finding now that my lower back is beginning to bother me because I don't have the range of motion that I used to have all the time by just being out and about, whether it be shopping, running around, going to the gym, etc. That's affected my mental well-being because now I'm thinking, I just can't do the things that I used to do.
Yeah,
and I had a similar experience actually, Vash. Sorry, it was just kind of get in there. I had a similar experience where I felt I needed a knee brace on one of my knees, and it wasn't until I started exercising I realized it wasn't that there was anything wrong with my knees. It was circulation. I wasn't stretching. I wasn't doing those things I normally would do. So just your body seizing up really made me think about aging, that we don't have to have like this body, this temple that's not working. It's about movement. It's about eating properly. And when I started doing those things, I had a very different feeling of my body and mental state.
Exactly. Right on.
And one last thing that I want to add to that was it made me think of tomorrow I am going to a funeral of a friend, a very good friend whose mother was 95 years old and she passed. And prior to the pandemic hitting, she was going to the casino. She was, she was very active and just doing everything every day. And then all of a sudden, all of that had to stop. And so one of her brother said to me, one of the things that I feel bad about was that my mother missed 2 more years to enjoy her life because of COVID. And so, and that kind of hit me really hard, thinking how people had to face those challenges, who was basically elderly and was living. They were actually living their life. So that also came to me about what was going on behind the curtain during that time. So do you feel alcohol or mind-altering substances increased while people were in isolation?
Well, statistics show, yes, that absolutely did increase. But, something that folks don't really always talk about is partner violence also increased. So when the partner that would normally be assaulted and they would be able to contact other people or at least try to reach out, they couldn't because that person was there. And I know you're talking about substances, but I think, partner violence is often not really discussed in general. And we also don't really talk about in relation to COVID, where you cannot get away from your abuser. So that's a side piece that, we could have another show about that. But I think in general, COVID has really affected how we cope with things. So, for example, for me, I mentioned earlier, I started eating. I didn't even realize that I was overeating until a friend of mine said, we had 10 pieces of chicken here about 30 minutes ago, and now there's only 3. Did you realize that you ate them? And I was on the beach. We were hanging out on the beach, Orchard Beach in the Bronx. He said, did you realize that you just ate them? And I said, I did? You didn't have, are you sure? No,
That's
Stephen, I wasn't even with you at the time. I was in the car in a meeting. So by the time he came out the meeting, I had eaten almost all the fried chicken.
Wow.
That's a good friend, though.
A very good friend.
Okay, very good friend. At least I'm gonna let me give that friend kudos. But I know statistically they did say that people began drinking more, but was it to the point that it was disrupting their lives? Or it didn't disrupt mine, is what I'm saying. And I know that I started drinking. So I started drinking tequila and just tested. And most of my friends know I don't like tequila. But I was home. I didn't have to go to work, and I just felt like let me have some tequila. But I didn't realize that tequila was also putting some weight on me as well. So, but it was, and I didn't do it for any other reason other than I could, because I didn't have to get in my car and drive the next day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
well, Derek said that he wasn't a real drinker until COVID hit. And touching back on your comment about your friend's mom, Robin said that she had a great anxiety caring for a dying mother, and she couldn't visit her in the hospital. And when she passed out, family and friends couldn't meet. She was very angry at home at those who didn't take the whole pandemic seriously. Yeah, definitely an issue. Well, I have a question about people who were substance abusers that were not alcohol. I don't know if you deal with any of those types of people, but did they get better because there was a lack of availability?
Well, just from my own experience, my practice didn't reflect any of those things. Maybe maybe 2 people increased their alcohol use. It wasn't problematic. They still functioned and worked. But just going back to the example of the person saying they could not see their loved one, that was one of the themes that I would see quite a bit of, is that. And again, in my practice, I can't say, okay, as a result of that, they began to drink more or use other drugs. What I got was more very deep anger, a lot of anger that they couldn't go see their loved one, or the loved one passed away and they couldn't be there those last few minutes. In my experience, again, I know substance use did increase, but in terms of my own experience in my work, it were feelings of anger, depression, anxiety. Those were things that I began to see much, much, much more of.
Okay. So Robin's experience was pretty typical for what you were seeing.
Yeah,
absolutely. And one of my specialties is addiction. That's one of my specialties. I'm always looking, especially during this period, I'm assessing that particular way of coping. So I was really on the lookout for that, but I didn't see it as much.
Okay. Now you touched a little bit on relationships. COVID was a trip for relationships. Because people could not get away, as you were saying. They couldn't get away. They couldn't get to visit other people, to, vent about their loved ones. What kind of things did you see in that regard?
Well, those that were partnered, it was very difficult for the majority. The the idea of when people can leave the house, go to work, and be focused on other things, and then coming back together, it was more the norm. So, however, there was one example that I thought was very interesting is that there was a client of mine that she loved the fact that when her partner was home, because he would travel for work, he was so much home, so much, she loved it. She just felt it was, and her son was there too, and she loved it. And she's a very active, high-powered person, but there was something about being together that was very grounding for her.
Okay.
So people have various responses to this experience.
Right on.
Well, I saw a lot of different scenarios as related to relationships and how people were dealing with them during COVID. Again, from people raising their kids to people, I met some people who had just started dating people or someone during the onset of COVID and had to abruptly stop because they didn't know the person long enough to pursue it. And that brought on anxieties. And so, because they felt like they were alone. And like you said, I know several people who had relationship issues that are married because they were spending too much time together and they didn't usually do that. So I'm hoping that for all those people who went through that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and that you are dating again, and you have found someone to fill that space, and married couples have found a way to make amends now that we are coming out of this situation. So I'm sending hope for all.
Can I just add? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Alvin.
Oh, no, go ahead.
COVID has also kind of revealed cracks in relationships. You know what I mean? Like when you push things under the rug all this time, and you kind of work around things and you kind of minimize things. But then when you're living together, what you normally would have, pushed under the rug, okay, he's just in a bad mood. Folks are being like confronted right there in the moment. And one of the things that I, noticed were those cracks and how it was whether it was a couple that I was working with or an individual, that there were things that were surfacing that they just couldn't ignore anymore. And that added a great deal of frustration and anger, resentment towards their partner. That became, so it wasn't necessarily about COVID. It was about my partner. I don't like him anymore. I don't like her. Or, it was more like that. I don't, So.
Yeah, like in therapy, one of the first things, my first therapist told me was that, as you go through this process, Alvin, you may find that the people who you've been around or have, you may not like what you see anymore as you learn more about yourself. That is so true. That is so true. And Blue said that yes, many relationships have ended. That is true. And Derek also said earlier that his drink of choice was vodka. Thank you, Derek.
You get to get together and drink and have no competition for each bottle.
Thank you, Derek. Okay.
And you know what? To put a little spin on that, right? There's nothing wrong with drinking, right? There's nothing wrong with eating.
No.
It's how is it affecting your day-to-day functioning? That's what, as a therapist, that's what I look at. How is this affecting your finances, your physical health, your relationships? Because, our friend had vodka and that, but did it cause him to miss Zoom calls? You didn't show for your client. These are the things to look at. So when I'm doing my work, I'm really looking at those markers.
Yeah.
And how frequently those markers show up.
Right. So if you have a friend who's hungry at the beach, you should check and see how much chicken you eating, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You better look at each piece, make sure there's the same number of chicken wings that were there, and good thighs, because you never know. Some people eat half of the chicken and then leave the other part exposed, so you think you're gonna get a whole drumstick in half. You gotta watch
I
that.
don't want to go to the beach with them. Okay.
Okay. I'm just saying.
Hilarious.
Okay.
Well, Stephen, what sort of big life changes did you see people making?
Well, let me start with myself. I think that's probably the easiest thing. Because one of the things I just want to say in general about this conversation that we're having, what I was experiencing in my client base wasn't that folks were freaking out about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It was more about this was on top of already what they came into therapy for. So if they were having a relationship issue, marital problem, COVID was there, but it's like, I still have this problem. It hasn't gone away. And, that type of thing. But ask the question again, decisions?
Yeah, like what significant life decisions did people make as a result of
Thank you.
these big changes?
So again, let me start with me. Sorry, audience and the interviews here. For me, I had to give up an office space where I was working for 19 years.
Wow.
And to then go from that to work from home, which was not my norm. And it was a big decision not to go back there. However, the same friend who said I was eating all the chicken said to me, well, why don't you look for another office space? And so I ended up finding another office space because I had to get out of the house. I went 1 day a week. I had to leave the house and see my clients in person when the whole vaccine and booster stuff came into the picture. And the office space was half the price. So if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't have had this experience. And it was also a way that I had to stretch outside my comfort zone. And so I made the decision that, okay, I'll have the office once a week, but I'm not going to be so heavily driven to have a full-time office. Plus my clients, really 95% of my clients love the video option.
Yeah, I was going to
It
ask.
works for them. They're not running to their appointment during lunch. They're sitting at their desk, their living room, some of them in the park. I mean, it's changed the game.
Yeah, nice.
Well, it seemed like from what you said, COVID has created opportunities for people to grow. I mean, you mentioned yourself. I know for me, COVID has actually, when COVID hit, I just started putting all my energy into my house. I figured I'm going to be home, so let me see what I can do to beautify my house. And before I knew it, the whole house has been totally renovated almost in 2 years. So COVID has created opportunities. Have you guys seen any opportunities where or feel that COVID has created opportunities for you or people that you've been around?
Vash, you can start that.
Yeah. Well, again, that whole notion of suddenly having the world shrink because you did have this video option to begin to explore opportunities and options. That has been super big. The whole notion of people using TikTok and social media to create opportunities for themselves has been really, really huge. There's been a huge shift in people doing way more electronic things to make a living, and that's all because of COVID.
Yeah, you just made me remember one of my clients who is an environmentalist, and a lot of people are not really, talking about the environmental problems that we're having to the degree that they are. And one way that he was able to add to his work, because he's also an attorney, so that's a whole different career that he's in. But as an environmentalist and actually pursuing his PhD, he started a TikTok channel, and in that environment, he discussed climate change issues. So he didn't have the platforms that were being presented to him before COVID, but this was another way for him to get the word out, and a lot of responses. A lot of folks are really, their consciousness was raised.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Totally
Well,
agree.
I have to admit, he said was birthed out of COVID. Okay.
Mm.
So here we are tonight on this platform, and it allowed us to have the time to create and to bring the show to you guys every day, even for a year. Happy anniversary, guys.
Yes, it did.
So yeah, so it has definitely created some opportunities that I could go on and on and on about. And I've even said to people, you know, yes, COVID, it was a bad thing, but it made me be a better person. It made me become a better person in so many different ways. So it gave me an opportunity for me to grow personally. So I have to I give that to COVID as well.
Hmm. I have to agree with you on that.
Mhm.
It was a stimulus, right? It was a situation that we got to do what we could do with it,
Mhm.
good, bad, or indifferent. I have a question because, as we've been talking about doing this show, and I've been talking with people that I know, people have been talking about some of the fears that they have going back into the world now that restrictions are being lifted. Can you talk about some of the things that people are talking to you about?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm the one that has that issue. My clients are not really, many of the clients I work with, their work life pivoted. They
Okay.
worked from home. They were just as productive as when they were going into the office. So, and going back, there's these hybrid models. 1 week in or 1 day in, the rest of the week out. That's working for people.
Hmm.
So in terms of my experience, my practice, which may not represent the broader picture, but most were pretty not comfortable, but okay with the change. And then you have like a couple of my clients are teachers, and especially with young kids. With young kids, you really have to be physically there to reassure them, to show them, whatever they're doing. And that was very challenging when COVID was as more active as it is now. But going back, it was also still problematic because kids were wearing masks. They didn't want to wear masks. And so it became a very tense situation to be back. But it was not the norm for all my clients. It was actually a positive thing. And if I could just add one thing just to go back
Yeah.
to another part of our conversation, one of my neighbors, she loved the idea to work from home. She couldn't stand being around people, and she she loved her work even more being home. And then there was another client has a 14, 15-year-old son who was really not doing great in school, like very, very, very smart young man, was pulling like C's, maybe sometimes D's. When COVID hit, I tell you, his grades went from B to A because he didn't have the distractions. He wasn't trying to be the cool kid. He wasn't trying to follow his peers. And so all of a sudden you had this kid who's, he's very smart, very intelligent, very articulate, all those things. But then to begin to see actual academic work that was very difficult to expose, for lack of a better word, COVID exposed it.
Right.
So those are some other. Now those are things that I definitely experienced in my practice.
Yeah, it did a shakeup, and
It
was sort of a necessary. It was sort of a necessary thing in the evolution of our species.
Now, Blue said that COVID is a bad thing, and clearly, I hope you didn't hear us say that it was not a bad thing, but we definitely know that it was and it still is. And he said that China just shut down one of its provinces because of the rise in COVID infections. Again, one world, one race, the people race. That is true. Yeah, I heard about that today. Stephen, I want to ask you, do you think that because of COVID, that we are now more aware of mental wellness issues in relations to ourselves and others from what you can see?
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. I think that COVID has made mental wellness like a thing. It's not just like, oh, it's for, excuse me, the white people, and it's not for folks who think they're crazy. It's like we gotta look at ourselves. We have to look at how we managing when George Floyd was killed, because that was another thing, right? When COVID hit, we were all watching television. We couldn't leave.
Yes. Right.
And so folks were feeling rageful. Folks were feeling like, now you see what's going on with people of color. Some other folks will be like, oh, I didn't know it was that bad.
Right.
And so it shook up our culture. And so, yeah, and I think celebrities was also a big part of that, especially celebrities of color, talking about their own experiences in therapy. And I wouldn't say it made it cool. It's not cool. I'm trying to minimize it, but it is like part of a norm. It's becoming more of a norm than, let's say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It still is a taboo thing, especially in the Black and Latino community. There is some resistance, but far less resistance now that folks can be seen online. They can text message therapy and so on. It's really made it accessible, and that is the leveler that COVID brought. It became a leveler.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Okay.
So, Stephen, what are some of the coping mechanisms that you recommend or that people can use as we move forward with these restrictions being lifted and we're going back into the world?
Well, I thought you were going to say that, so I wrote down a list. We're going to try to remember from my list.
Do an interpretive dance with them too, if you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, one is just like what we talked about. I think really consider therapy. A lot of times we're suffering in silence. Sometimes this whole thing with COVID, people passing away unexpectedly, feelings of loss, abandonment. You don't think it's bothering you, but if you think about it and you follow some of the things that are discussed even here, people are feeling a lot of rage. So I would say definitely therapy. Exercise is crucial. I think one of the things that really made it difficult for me until the gyms actually opened was I didn't have a place to displace my energy. The work that I do is we're talking, we're thinking, we're strategizing, we're listening. That was one of my automatic outlets. Even if I spent half an hour on an elliptical or walking or whatever, it was still something for my well-being and for my body. So I definitely would encourage exercise. In some studies, they've said that exercise competes with antidepressants. I'm not saying you not to take medication. I'm fine with that, but just be aware that our natural chemicals can also take care of us. So that would be another. I think laughter is really important. Your social circle, socialization is really important. I know for me, I can't wait to go to a stand-up comedy show or concert, because that's another one of my medicines. So that's one of the ways I cope with things like that. But getting together with your friends and being intentional about it. So, for example, I hate to make it about me. It's not me, but I'm just giving examples of how I go. When a friend says, "Oh, we should really get together," and yeah, we should do that. Even I was guilty of that. Now I go, when? What time? I'm locking this down. You know what I mean? Because we don't know what's going to go on with ourselves, with our friends, and we do need to have that person-to-person contact. Because when we don't, it's like many even animals in the wild, they die.
Right.
Without that social contact.
Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten to the end of our segment with Stephen, and we have to let him go. But Stephen, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. As we again create this metaphor, lifting the curtain and setting the stage, and I am sure that some of what we've talked about tonight can give our viewers an idea of where we were and what we were talking about being behind the stage and now preparing yourself for the curtain to rise and for you to step on that stage and at least think about, what type of performance you want to have as we prepare ourselves to go into this new world of living. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight, man, and just being a resource for us here. Thank you.
And if I may, I want to thank you guys because there's no other broadcast like this, number one. Happy anniversary. And I think you're doing a great service to the community.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. And real quick, I do want to. Sean said something. I just want to make sure that we acknowledge. Hey, Sean, Robin, and Derek. You guys have been so vocal tonight, and we do appreciate your comments. And so, thank you all for commenting, Blue and Bobby and Rose and everybody who's commented. Thank you. But Stephen, we're not exactly going to let you go because we thought we would play a little game with you tonight called Rapid Fire. Are you ready to?
I know. We don't know very much about you.
Rapid fire.
Well, hold on. Let me go get a piece of chicken. I'll be right back.
We do know that about you.
There you go. You know that about me. Don't bring me to no picnics. There's going to be a problem.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second segment of the show before we sign off called Rapid Fire, Getting to Know Stephen Welch. Okay, so and rapid fire, I'm just going to ask you a question and you answer it as quickly as you can. First thing that comes to your head. So, Stephen, what is your trashy reality TV show obsession?
I don't have one.
Oh, ooh.
I don't do reality shows. Don't do it.
Okay.
Right on. Roller skating or rollerblading?
Oh, roller skating. And the four wheels, not the ones in line, for old school.
No, right.
Yes.
8 wheels. Okay, 8 wheels. What's your favorite board game?
Checkers.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Now, for this question, I want you to know that these fruit are super ripe and super juicy.
Are we talking about fruit or are we talking about something else? What's going on?
Hey, baby. Would you rather eat a mango, a pear, or a strawberry?
Strawberry.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
What is your favorite time of the day?
Evening. I love going to the gym at 11 o'clock at night. That's why I'm glad there's a 24-hour gym because after work and decompressing, I need a good 3 or 4 hours and then I'm back to normal. So yeah, evening.
Okay.
So you're at the gym until 1 a.m. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. What TV show do you watch every single week?
I don't. So I don't have a weekly. Now, what I did watch recently was, oh my goodness, this woman inventing Anna on Netflix. The woman who schemed her way out of all these millions of dollars. I usually don't binge watch, but that was crazy.
Yeah, I did see that. Okay. For somebody who doesn't.
I know I sound boring. I know I sound boring. But those are things that don't rock my world at all.
No.
Well, we're getting to know Stephen. So you've been asked to bring a wine to a party. What do you show up with?
Prosecco.
Bubbles. Always bubbles.
Always
bubbles. Yeah. Who would you like to see in concert?
Oh, Bill Burr.
Right.
You guys don't know who he is, right?
Not at all.
He's amazing. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's really cool. If you get a chance, I mean, for those in the audience, it's not an insult because he talks about this all the time. Bill Burr is funny and he talks about things like that. And his humor is so spot on about Black people. It is unbelievable, including white people. Bill Burr, if you see him, please check him out.
I will look up Bill Burr. Well, we got two more for you, and then we're going to let you go. What is your favorite flower?
Rose.
Okay.
Interesting.
Red, yellow.
Interesting. Okay. So, formal dinner party or backyard barbecue?
Backyard barbecue with fried chicken.
And there you have it.
And there you have it.
There you have it. Thank you for
wait a minute. You know there's people watching this and they will say, he's a psychotherapist? Oh my God.
Well, those who come to see you will always bring you fried chicken. So
that's right.
And red roses. Yeah.
Never be hungry.
Exactly.
Okay.
Never be.
Stephen, thank you for indulging us on, on Rapid
Absolutely,
Fire,
absolutely.
man, getting to know you. But before we go, ladies and gentlemen, I have to give you our words of the week. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And this was a quote by Socrates, ladies and gentlemen. So please take it for what you've heard for our show tonight. We are so happy that you tuned in to watch us. Thank you to all the viewers. Thank you to Stephen for joining us tonight. As always,
Absolutely.
welcome back, my brother. Please come by and visit us again. And Vash, I guess we have to tell everybody we look forward to seeing them next week on our next episode of He Said.
He said.
Stephen?
He said.
That's it.
Okay.
We'll see you all next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. And spring forward.
Yes, indeed.
There you go.